I stepped into Claire and Daniel's home that Friday night, carrying nothing heavier than a week's worth of work fatigue. The Colorado air outside was sharp and cold, but inside, their house was a shield of warmth that smelled of garlic, fresh basil, and settled, quiet love. Claire and I, we were carved from the same college stone. Our friendship was built on the kind of loyalty that survives road trips, heartbreak, and the terrifying whispers of unspoken dreams. Now, in our early 30s, life had given us different paths. Mine was the tight, focused climb of a small marketing firm. Theirs was a beautiful, balanced unity. Claire was the bright spark. Daniel, the calm, steady anchor. They were my family, and being with them felt like coming home. We ate quickly, trying to cram months of missed life into an hour of conversation. I watched them, noticing the easy rhythm of their shared glances, the way their home felt complete. A familiar, tiny tug of loneliness, the kind I never allowed myself to voice bricked at me. But the mood was warm, familiar, and the chatter soon washed that feeling away. Yet, underneath the comfort, a soft tension hummed, a shift in the angle of Claire's smile, the way Daniel would look to his wife before confirming a thought. I chose to ignore it until after dinner, when we were settled by the flickering fireplace. Small glasses of wine in hand, Claire leaned forward, her hands locked together. I recognized that posture instantly. It was her prelude to something big, something difficult, something she knew would land with weight. Daniel sat near, his presence a silent wall of support. Perfectly synchronized with her apprehension, my heart began to beat a quick, uneasy rhythm. I tried a joke. Claire didn't even register it. She looked at Daniel, and he offered a slight, almost imperceptible nod. It's time. Sound, music fades slightly. Fire crackles. Claire's voice, when it came, was gentle, but frayed at the edges. She started with their future, their quiet, desperate longing to build a family, and how their journey had been harder than any of them expected. My stomach tightened. I knew they'd been trying, but hearing the struggle spoken aloud made the reality heavy. She rushed the words, speaking of doctors, procedures, and the emotional setbacks that had thinned their hope. I reached for her hand, offering simple comfort, but Claire squeezed back, harder, and whispered the sentence that would shatter my comfortable world. There's something we want to ask you. I blinked, caught off guard. Daniel leaned in, his voice unwavering, yet steeped in sincerity. He told me they trusted me above all others, that I was already woven into the fabric of their lives. He said I was the only person who could help them in a way that felt meaningful, safe, and true. My pulse spiked, possibilities racing through my mind, a blur of confusion and disbelief. Then Claire finally said it. No drama, no long preamble, just a soft, trembling sentence that landed like a stone dropped into deep water. We want you to consider becoming our surrogate. The room went still. The air grew thick with the unspoken gravity of the request. I couldn't speak. My mind was sorting through shock, honor, and a strange, sudden ache I couldn't yet name. They watched me, terrified, as if my single word held the power to break something beautiful between us. I wasn't angry. I wasn't offended. I was overwhelmed completely, deeply overwhelmed. Claire rushed to fill the silence, promising no pressure, no expectation, just hope fragile. Borrowed hope from people who had reached the end of their courage. Daniel spoke of respect, of responsibility, of my kind heart. Sound, music swells slightly. A moment of realization. I listened, stunned by the depth of their trust. Something shifted inside me, a complex warmth mixed with immense weight. This wasn't a simple favor. This was life, reshaped. I swallowed hard, nodding slowly, needing air, needing space, unable to give an answer, but utterly unable to ignore the tenderness in their eyes. I excused myself early as I walked to my car under the cold Colorado sky. Snowflakes drifted down like quiet little whispers. I knew my world had stopped being simple. The question they asked me was now a current, pulling strongly at my heart. The storm within for the next week. I was a quiet storm of confusion. I tried to anchor myself to my routine, to my work, but my thoughts raced ahead, refusing to settle. Every break in the day left room for the question to return. Could I really help them? In such a life-changing way? And what would it mean for my own heart? I've always been practical, steady a reliable support system. But this was different. The responsibility was immense, making me feel both honored and terrified. On my morning jogs, the cold air cleared my head only briefly. Then I'd remember Claire's face, a heartbreaking blend of hope and fear. And the ache in my chest would return. It was a tangled emotion, love from my friend, and a worry that this journey might change our bond forever. I thought of my own quiet dreams, the child I always imagined having. Someday, if the right moment arrived, I wondered if helping Claire would intensify that longing, making it sharper, or push it so deep it would be lost forever. Neither possibility offered easy comfort. I spent my evenings wrapped in blankets, watching the snowflakes drift through the streetlights. The questions circled. Could I give so much without losing pieces of myself? The emotional pull surprised me. This wasn't just about obligation. It was touching corners of my heart I usually kept hidden, corners full of unspoken hopes. I tried to visualize the future. Claire finally smiling with relief. Daniel being the steady, joyful father I knew he would be. The three of us connected by something deeper than friendship. The thought was warm, but it was also frightening. I didn't know if I was ready for a connection that deep. And then I imagined saying no. I pictured the invisible bruise that would form beneath the surface of our friendship. The quiet acceptance in Daniel's eyes, the fading hope in Claire's smile. That thought hurt more than anything else. My fear wasn't about the medical process or the physical challenge. It was about the emotional shift. Once I said yes, our lives would never be exactly the same. I wasn't afraid of the responsibility. I was afraid of how much my heart might change along the way. I had spent years maintaining control, building a steady, independent life, even if it was lonely. But now, something deep inside was stirring. Something wanted purpose, connection, and meaning. I whispered the terrifying possibilities to myself. What if this is the right thing? What if I was meant to help them? But what if I lose myself in the process? I realized I couldn't live in these circling thoughts any longer. I had to face Claire and Daniel again, not to give an answer, but to understand my own heart better in their presence. I reached for my phone, my hands trembling slightly, and sent the message. The conversation ahead would be honest, emotional, and impossible to walk away from unchanged. The confrontation and the Claritide small cafe was warm wood tables, soft light. The scent of coffee. My heart hammered as I pushed the door open. Claire and Daniel were already there, Claire gripping her mug. Daniel calm but alert. The weight of the entire week crashed onto my chest as I walked toward them. Claire gave me a nervous smile, one that failed to hide her worry. Daniel offered a steady, kind nod, silently telling me that whatever I felt was acceptable. I realized our connection had already changed in ways I hadn't yet named. We sat in silence for a moment, the background noise of the cafe a sharp contrast to the intense stillness at our table. Finally, I took a deep breath. I need to ask something, I said quietly. I need to understand why you chose me. Claire's hand tightened on her mug. Daniel leaned forward, his voice a steady reservoir of warmth. He repeated the words I'd heard before, but now they resonated deeper. Trust, kindness, compassion. He said they needed someone with heart, someone who could help them in a way that was meaningful, not just practical. Claire added that their journey had been a long road of quiet despair, and they needed someone they trusted completely to walk this terrifying next step with them. My throat tightened. I felt the emotional weight of their journey, recognizing it against the backdrop of my own unspoken longings. I understood then that their request was not about convenience. It was about love and the hope of building something larger than themselves. Daniel held my gaze. gently reiterating that the decision had to come from my own heart, not from pressure or obligation. He framed it not as a burden, but as an opportunity to give a life-changing gift. Claire reached across the table, her hand resting on mine. She insisted on honesty. "We know this journey will bring unpredictable emotions," she said. "We can't hide our feelings. Honesty is the foundation that keeps us safe and close." Sound, music becomes tender. Focusing on connection, I looked at Daniel, the steady observer. I felt a wave of gratitude for his calm strength. I realized that agreeing wasn't just about surrogacy. It was about opening myself to a new kind of emotional experience that would deepen our bond, beyond anything I could have expected. For the first time that week, I allowed myself to imagine saying yes. Claire holding a child. Daniel seeing his dream of fatherhood realized. The warmth spread through me, a mix of hope and profound responsibility. But I also saw the fear, the possibility of attachment growing too strong, the challenge testing my boundaries. I needed more time to align my heart fully. "I need time to think," I finally said, softly but steadily. "I want this choice to come from my heart, not from obligation or guilt." Claire and Daniel nodded, their expressions softening with immediate relief and understanding. A sense of lightness mixed with tension settled over me. I had taken the first step toward clarity, but the bridge was not yet crossed as I left the cafe. Walking back into the cold winter air, I felt exhilarated and frightened. Facing them, sharing my doubts, had been crucial. I understood now that the emotional weight of their request is inseparable from my own inner longings. I couldn't separate my heart from theirs. A few days later, I asked Claire and Daniel to meet me at the town park. The winter light was soft on the snow. Children's laughter echoed in the distance. The crisp air seemed to sharpen my thoughts. Nerves fluttered, but anticipation had finally overtaken fear. Claire arrived first, bundled up, her cheeks pink with cold. Daniel followed, his calm demeanor steadying me. As we walked to a quiet spot beneath a tall pine, my hands trembled slightly. The moment had arrived. I took a deep breath and began to speak. I told them I had thought about everything, their trust, their hope, my own emotional readiness. I explained that the decision was not impulsive, but carried deep meaning. I had chosen with my heart fully involved. Claire's eyes widened, a small gasp escaping her lips. Daniel's expression shifted instantly to gratitude. Sound, music is hopeful. Firm I said the words I had rehearsed for nights. I wanted to help them. I wanted to be their surrogate. And I wanted to walk this journey with them, honoring the trust and friendship we shared. The three of us stood in the snow, the silence vast as the gravity of the decision settled. I felt the extraordinary weight of love and hope pressing on my heart up pressure. That was both humbling and profoundly empowering. I continued, reminding them that honesty would be the foundation of everything, that we could not pretend this journey would be easy. They nodded slowly, understanding the depth of my request. Claire moved closer and hugged me tightly, her relief spilling over in unrestrained tears. Daniel squeezed my hand, his steady warmth grounding me. This journey was not mine alone. We would face it together. A surprising lightness began to replace the anxiety. Saying yes was not just about helping them achieve a dream. It was about opening my own heart to an experience full of connection and purpose I hadn't known I needed. As we walked back through the park, snowflakes swirling softly, a sense of calm settled over me. I had made a choice that honored my heart, my values, and my deep care for them. It was brave and generous, and it marked the beginning of a journey none of us could fully predict. But all of us would walk together. I understood in that moment that this was not a favor. It was a gift that required courage, emotional honesty, and commitment. But the thought no longer frightened me. It filled me with purpose, a profound sense of hope, and the quiet, powerful beauty of a promise made from the deepest place in the human heart. Sound, music fades out slowly, part 2. The journey begins sound, upbeat. Determined but slightly tense music, Chapter 5, The Legal. An emotional waltz commitment I made in the snow quickly ushered us into a world of clinical appointment schedules and legal documents. It felt like moving from a cozy, heartfelt agreement to a cold, professional transaction. Our first major hurdle was the lawyer's office. The contract pages of dense, precise language detailing every contingency, from financial agreements to the absolute, unambiguous transfer of parental rights, was a shock. It was necessary, yes, but it felt like building a wall between our friendship and the enormous gift we were undertaking. Claire, always the emotional one, was quiet, her hand constantly seeking Daniel's. Daniel, the steady anchor, read every clause with a meticulous focus, asking necessary, difficult questions that protected all three of us. I found myself oddly grateful for the cold, clear language. It forced us to confront the boundaries we needed. We discussed visitation, communication, and, most difficultly, the theoretical worst-case scenarios. Claire insisted I take the lead on setting boundaries around involvement during the pregnancy. "I don't want to suffocate you, Emma," she whispered during a break, her voice tight. "I want to be present, but I need you to tell me when to step back." I realized her fear was as immense as mine. The fear of overstepping. The fear of losing the friendship to the clinical reality. "Honesty, remember?" I replied, reaching for her hand. "If I need space, I'll tell you. But I want you both there for every appointment." That evening, after signing the final pages, we stood outside the legal office under the harsh city lights. The contrast between the emotional weight of the documents and the legal finality was jarring. The contract, meant to separate our roles, ironically reinforced our unity. We were bound not just by friendship, but by law, medicine, and the singular purpose of bringing a child to Claire and Daniel. Chapter 6. The shared vulnerability medical preparation began almost immediately. My independent, structured life was swiftly invaded by doctor's visits, blood tests, and the strict schedule of hormone injections. The emotional commitment was now a physical one. I was surprised by how involved Claire and Daniel became, not out of obligation, but out of sheer love and necessity. Daniel took on the duty of administering my daily injections. He learned the protocols with a quiet seriousness that was deeply reassuring. Every night, they would drive over, and Claire would sit close, distracting me with ridiculous stories while Daniel, focused and gentle, gave the shot. Sound of a needle being prepped, quickly followed by a soft, comforting sound. This routine became sacred. In those few minutes of vulnerability, me relying completely on Daniel's steady hand, Claire's distracting laughter, our bond deepened further. The injections were often painful, but the shared hope was a powerful anesthetic. We were a team in the most literal sense, navigating the clinical and the personal simultaneously. The anxiety ratcheted up as we neared the egg retrieval and the embryo transfer. Claire and Daniel had only 2 viable embryos remaining from years of fertility treatments. 2 tiny drops of hope carried forward. The pressure was immense. If this failed, their options would be nearly exhausted. We clung to the honesty we had promised each other. I shared my fears about the hormones making me moody. Claire shared her paralyzing terror of another failure. Daniel was our rock, absorbing the tension, reminding us all to breathe. Chapter 7. The moment of truth. Day of the transfer was quiet, sterile, and intensely spiritual. We were all present in the procedure room, me on the table, Claire and Daniel, dressed in surgical scrubs, standing close. The doctor, calm and clinical, showed us the screen. There, a microscopic flicker of life. The embryo was ready. Daniel held Claire's hand. Claire held mine. Sound, soft, high-pitched electronic tone, indicating a clinical monitor. The transfer itself was quick, unremarkable. But the moment the tiny life was placed inside me, the atmosphere in the room changed. It wasn't just a medical procedure. It was a profound act of creation. Claire wept silently, leaning her head on Daniel's shoulder. I felt a rush of tenderness, A deep connection to the hope I was now holding. Then came the waiting. The infamous 2-week wait, a period known in the fertility community for its psychological torture. Every twinge, every cramp was analyzed, whispered about, and dismissed. Claire and I instituted a strict no-symptom checking rule, which we broke hourly via frantic, whispered text messages. Daniel, once again, stepped in to normalize the world. He planned movie nights, took us on long hikes, and ensured the conversation remained focused on anything but my uterus. He was protecting the fragile hope we all carried. Finally, the morning of the blood test arrived. We drove to the clinic together, a silent, nerve-wracking convoy. Hours later, the phone rang. It was Dr. Chen. Claire grabbed the phone, her hand shaking so hard Daniel had to steady it. She put the call on speaker, and we listened, huddled together in their kitchen, surrounded by the smell of cooling coffee. Claire and Daniel, the doctor said brightly, "The results are back. She's pregnant." Sound, music swells to a triumphant, emotional climax, then softens the silence. This time was not tension, but profound shock and relief. Claire let out a sob, a deep, primal sound of joy and release after years of pain. Daniel squeezed my hand so tightly I thought he might break it, his eyes brimming with tears. I felt an explosive surge of happiness, a physical lightness replacing the weight of responsibility. It had worked. Our quiet promise, forged in the snowy park, was now a tiny, undeniable reality. The journey had begun. We were officially connected forever. The three of us stood there, hugging tightly, laughing and crying all at once. The warmth of the moment dissolving the memory of the cold legal walls, the anxiety of the shots, and the years of quiet despair. We were pregnant, and our extraordinary friendship had created a miracle. Sound, music fades to a gentle, reflective piano,